run a pretty, open class. So if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out. Typically what I'll do is we're just gonna kind of run down a couple of the applets that are teamified. And if there's something you all want to dive deeper into, please don't hesitate, shout it out and we'll kind of do some digging. So without further ado, I will attempt to share my screen. Hopefully everyone's seeing my screen. Oh, look, there it is up there. It's amazing. Technology, I'll tell you what.
It's awesome.
It's something else. When it works. Are you going to be letting people in or should I be doing
Yeah,
that?
I will.
Okay, all right. So here you can see we are logged into Command and, to kind of just really talk about basics, even if you're familiar with Command, the thing I always want to talk to every team member about is if you are using Team for Command, just make sure that your team account is set to log in by default. That's actually one of the things that we always kind of see people run into because keeping in mind with Command, you have your personal command and you have your team command, right? So how do we check that? Pretty simple. If we go in the upper right-hand corner where our drop down is, we can go to settings. And then on the left-hand side under general, we have default account. And then we can actually pick which account do we want to default when we log into Command. This is the number one issue I run into with agents, especially when they're using lead routing and they're trying to have their agents claim leads. They'll click to claim the lead, but Command by default is taking them into their personal account where there is no actual lead to claim. So if you're exclusively running in a team, select the team profile. Here you can see I selected the Josh Boatman group. I know my name's lame. I want to be Team Thundercats. The region's pushing back on me, but I'm still going to make it happen. Thundercats, I don't know one. Okay, cool. Anyways, so now let's kind of just jump into what apps are teamified and what aren't, right? That's the biggest thing people always kind of like, well, what works with teams and what doesn't? So typically, contacts are teamified. So, contacts probably the most boring applet in all of applets, right? Everyone hates contacts. It's the most important applet, contains the most important piece of information. But everyone hates working with their contacts, but that is in fact teamified. We'll dive a little bit deeper into what does that mean from permissions and things like that. Tasks are not teamified. So what does that mean? Well, that basically means the only person that can see a task is the person that creates the task. So if you have an admin on your team and they create a task to a contact, only that admin can see that task. Currently, that task cannot be assigned manually created by that admin to an agent on your team. That is going to change in the future, but I always like to try to be very clear with that. There are avenues when we create tasks via smart plans that they will be assigned to your team members, but we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into smart plans, which leads us into that next step. Smart plans are teamified. So we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. Referrals are not. Opportunities, sort of. So the answer is kind of, but the answer is not fully. So we'll kind of talk about some of the benefits that you guys need. For a minute, I thought a weird fire alarm went off. I'm like, that's the weirdest alarm ever. What do we do? Do I go downstairs, upstairs? I don't know. Opportunities, we'll talk a little bit about that. One of the recent changes is campaigns have in fact been teamified, which is extremely, extremely cool. That's going to give basically a lot of flexibility to your marketing within your team. So that's given us the ability to actually do true team lead routing. Team members can actually start their own Facebook campaigns if they want, if they have the appropriate permission. And more importantly, your admin can start to post to multiple Facebook business pages if you have multiple team members that have business pages that you want to kind of share the same ad across. Reports has not been teamified. This is kind of an important thing. I always try to talk to people, especially if you're a rainmaker and you're kind of looking at the reports and you're trying to look at the database health and you're like, wait a minute, it says my client doesn't, or my agent on my team doesn't have so many contacts. It's because it does not work for teams yet. Designs has not been, listings doesn't really matter, and consumer hasn't been as well. So if you're keeping up, we have contacts, we have smart plans, we sort of have opportunities, we have campaigns. Pretty cool, pretty major parts. So I'll kind of leave it up to you guys. If you want, I can kind of dive into each applet and talk about the team functions within the applet. Is there a specific applet you want me to start with? Campaigns, contacts for some odd reason, or smart plans, anything, any participation from the audience? I can wait you out. No, all right, cool. So what we'll do is we will start with contacts. Just kind of give you guys a quick breakdown. So contacts is kind of important. Oh, there's someone trying to get in. Hayden. Hello, Hayden. Thank you for joining. So contacts, probably the most important applet in all of command, right? The boringest, right? No one, I mean, it's managing the database. It's the one thing every agent hates to do, right? No one wants to go through and verify all this information, but if you do it right the first time, it's the most valuable. So the biggest things to keep in mind when we talk about contacts and teams is going to be what permission level you're assigning your team members. So there are 3 levels of permission that you can grant someone on your team. The top permission level is Rainmaker. We also refer to that as unlimited. Now, Rainmakers typically have a little bit more access than someone who has unlimited. But typically, if you have someone on your team and you're a Rainmaker and you want to give them the same access you do, you're going to give them unlimited. Then we have enhanced. So enhanced is very similar to unlimited. Basically, it allows them to do mostly the same thing except to give out additional unlimited permissions, right? So enhanced kind of prevents someone from adjusting team permissions. And then we have standard. For the majority, I should say, of your teams, your agents on your team, pretty much everyone should probably be standard. A lot of Rainmakers have kind of gotten into the habit of just making everyone unlimited, but depending on how you want to control your team, your permissions are going to play a vital part in that. And what I mean by that is when we talk about contacts, anyone with unlimited or enhanced can actually see every contact in the team. And maybe that's what you want. If you give agents standard, they are then only able to see the contacts that have been assigned to them. So it really depends on how you're running your team. Sometimes, people want to kind of separate church and state, as it were, and make sure that agent A only sees their contacts and agent B only sees their contacts. So when we talk about actually assigning contacts to someone, it's actually a pretty simple process. There's multiple ways to do it. Here you can see we're on my team contacts, and I have a couple contacts in here, just a few for us to mess with. I have Marcus Willembo, it's a new one I just made. But let's say we have Alan Little here, and I want to assign that to someone. I'm the Rainmaker, so I have the ability to do that. So I can either click the 3 little dots to the right, and I can click Assign To. And this is going to bring up a list of all my various team members. Pretty simple. If I wanted to assign this, say, to the regional ROM, Chelsea does not know she's on my team, don't tell her. I co-opted her command account. I can easily assign that. And then that means when Chelsea goes into team contacts and she is a standard user, she's only going to see Alan in her list. Pretty simple. Other ways we can do that, if we actually go into the contact as well, here we can kind of see a quick rundown, so we can see what account the team in, who currently owns the contact, and then the assignee is Chelsea, and then I am a collaborator. So pretty simple. If we wanted to change it, we can. What?
Can you explain what the collaborators?
Absolutely. So if we were to hit the pencil, we can also assign Chelsea here, and then this is also where we can assign collaborators. So collaborators, for lack of a better term, it's a way for someone else on the team to be able to just view the contact information. They really can't do much to it. They can add a note, but they actually cannot edit the contact information within the contact itself. A couple of things to keep in mind with that. When we talk about ownership of contacts, one of the really neat things that I think I see a lot of teams struggle with when we talk about contacts is trying to separate someone's personal sphere from the team sphere, right? Sometimes Rainmaker's like, well, they can just keep everything in their personal command, and then everything that's in the team command belongs to the team. You can do that. Nothing really wrong with that, other than it really doesn't give you a lot of transparency into your team's business. Because most Rainmakers, your mileage may vary, you want to run all the business through the team, right? So you as a rainmaker very well want to maybe be able to see what's going on. Well, what's really cool about command, people can bring their contacts into command and maintain ownership. So what that basically means, here you can see, even though this is in the team account, I am still the owner, but I've assigned Chelsea the contact to work it. And then I am also a collaborator. So what that means is even though I'm maintaining ownership of the contact, the team can't take it from me. If I want to leave, I can take that contact with me. I can still have someone else on the team work that lead. And that's a really important distinction, because as you're building out your team, you very well may have someone that comes onto your team that has a really good sphere, but they don't have a lot of time to work it. But you may have some young agent who's willing to make those phone calls. What's amazing is they can bring in their list and then they can assign those contacts to that young up and coming agent to make those, follow-up calls, to do the prospecting and still maintain ownership of it. So, and then the collaborator field allows that owner of the contact to still have insight into what is going on with the contact. They can't change anything, but they can at least see what that assignee is doing. Does that kind of make sense? Awesome. The only other true limitation that I would say you want to be careful of when it comes to contacts within command is, once again, we talked about the task. So here, if I'm logged in and I go to task and I add a task for this contact and I say, hey, call Alan tomorrow, and I create that task, even though it's in the contact, that only I can see it because I was the one that created that task. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. For the most part, contacts function pretty much the same for everything else, whether it's your personal command or your team command, but the assigning and maintaining ownership of that contact is kind of one of the #1 questions we get, because people get concerned, well, I don't mind working my leads in the team, but I want to make sure that I still own them. But that's always a good conversation to have with the rainmaker ahead of time, right? If you're a rainmaker, you should be having that conversation with people on your team, like, hey, I'm not here to take your leads. I'm not here to take your sphere. I'm here for us to grow together. But the cool thing is command has a pretty slick way of maintaining that ownership, so there is no question. So kind of simple, kind of basic. Any questions about contacts regarding teams and contacts, anything like that? Awesome sauce. All right. So the next thing we'll kind of dive into a little bit is just going to be smart plans. So that's the next thing on the list. So smart plans, phenomenal things. If you guys aren't utilizing smart plans, you're missing out, right? It's amazing to me as I sit down with more and more agents who aren't even, not even if you're not using smart plans, just to, Jen, are you going to monitor the chat for me?
I have.
Okay. All right. So Catherine asked for opportunities. Okay. I always forget there's a chat.
Well, when you share your screen, it's hard to see the chat.
Yeah, no, it pops up and I'm thinking like, you know what? I hate this. But anyways, all right. So when we talk about smart plans, it amazes me how many people actually don't use them. And I get it. Sometimes you don't want automated stuff going out to your clients. I get that. Some people are a little bit, A-type control-ish personality. I think they, in the disc, they call you all a high D for a reason. There's a joke there somewhere if you can find it. But in general, when we talk about smart plans and teams, there's a couple of nuances you want to keep in mind. When you give someone standard permission, they cannot create their own smart plans. They can only access team created smart plans that were built by an enhanced, unlimited, or the rainmaker. So they can't really change the smart plans. All they can do is add their people to that smart plan. Kind of, there's value in that, right? If you have a brand and you're a rainmaker, you're running your team, you want to make sure that they're just not grabbing a smart plan from the library, plugging your contacts in, and then just, you have to maintain some kind of control, right? I mean, at the Josh Boatman group, also known Team Thundercats. Well, you got what, G.I. Joe fans in here? I don't understand. No, but I would never want someone to just be able to send out a smart plan that I haven't looked at. So with that said, there's some nuances for your admins or for you as rainmakers when you're building those smart plans. So if we were to create a team smart plan, let's name it, you know what, we're gonna do it, we're gonna name it Thundercats. Love that cartoon.
I
People
was
don't
about to ask,
understand.
what is Thundercats?
He's actually a bass player. There's a guy named Thundercat.
It is, and he's amazing. I saw him at Dayton Gym City a couple of years ago after the shooting. Phenomenal guy, phenomenal.
Dave Chappelle.
And it's Thundercat. That's Thundercat, not Thundercats.
Sorry,
No
there has to be
plural.
more than one.
Well, you know, when there's more than one together, what do they say about that? But anyways,
There.
I have a quick question about that with the smart plan. So I just did what you said and changed it so that the team would be the default.
mhm,
But as I go on here, it looks like I can click between the team and mine. It's like with contacts. Like I clicked and I saw I have no access to team contacts, obviously, because we don't have it really set up yet.
okay.
And then, but then when I go to my personal, I obviously see my contacts. So so what you're saying with the smart plans is, do I only have access to those smart plans? Like if I'm on the default, the team, and then like on my personal, could I still create my own smart plans, or how does that work?
Absolutely. So keep in mind, so smart plans like personal command and team command, two completely separate.
Okay.
things.
So as a team member, you can still like utilize your
Personal command.
and you can still make your own smart plans
That is
there.
100%
But if you're given a team lead, you can only send the team lead, like set them up on a smart plan in your team.
In theory, yes. So like the
Default?
idea is, so the idea, if you think about it, think about personal command and team command being completely two separate buckets,
Yeah.
right? So in your personal command, you have all your contacts in the personal bucket, and in the team command, you have no contacts in the team bucket. So you can access smart plans within the team, but you have no contacts to assign
Right.
to that team. So if you get a lead through the team, say by a Facebook ad,
Mhm.
or you guys manually add a lead to your, to your team contacts and then you assign it, only that lead can be assigned to team created smart plans.
Got it. So if you're assigned like a Facebook lead, say I was assigned a Facebook
Mhm.
lead, would I see that on my personal, or it only shows up on
Only
the
on the team.
on the team? Okay,
Mhm.
so then you would never even be able to send your own smart plan. It would just be in the team.
That's
Okay, that
correct.
makes sense. That makes
That's right. There's separation in that regard, so you can't
Yeah.
accidentally assign.
sense. Yes, okay, got it.
Now, one of the things I'll quickly just throw out there, if you have a really awesome smart plan that you built in your personal command, you can publish that to the library and then download that into the team command, as long as you have unlimited or enhanced permissions. within
Got
the
it,
team.
got it.
So that way you don't have to recreate the wheel if you have something that's super, super awesome. But that brings up a great point. We might actually jump back to contacts and talk about how easy it is to transfer your contacts back and forth between the team. Something that I should have remembered, or Jim Vickers should have. No, it's fine, it's fine. But real quick, we'll just quickly run through smart plans. There's really not a whole lot of nuances and differences between this and personal command. There's a few things that I kind of want to quickly point out. If you were to create a task, one of the things you have an option is to use the default designated agent, the contact assignee, or the rainmaker. So this is where you can create a smart plan that if you have your standard agent, add them to that smart plan, and it can create that task. That task will be assigned to that agent. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Wait, so then this is still on smart plans,
This is smart plans,
and
yeah.
you're saying use designated agent,
Well, so you can have the checkbox designated agent, which you can see my default is the contact assignee.
Yeah.
Or if I uncheck it, I can also have it go to the rainmaker as well. So, but this is where
Okay.
the contact assignee is the person that's assigned to the contact. So when that contact gets added to this particular smart plan and it creates this task.
Yep.
That task is associated with that contact and assigned to that assigned agent. Does that make sense?
Wait, so what's the task created? Like, is it then to notify you, like if people,
It's gonna be, if you have a good example of a task, where what could be like, if we were to use, say, the quarterly call plan, smart plan, right? You would add your client to that, and then as the assigned agent on those contacts, it would create a task every 90 days for you to place a phone call.
it's just a
Yeah,
smart
yeah,
plan.
yeah,
It's
so
just a
you can't
smart
do
plan.
it, yeah, this is just for a smart plan
Okay, that
task,
makes
it's not
sense.
the task that you said earlier.
But the one caveat to keep in mind with this, once again though, even though the team smart plan is creating that task, and that agent on the team can see it, the Rainmaker cannot see that task. So the Rainmaker actually will not know if the task has been done or not, because currently we don't have team tasks, so there's not a lot of visibility from the Rainmaker. So it's just kind of like, I was kind of like just to point that out so you guys can understand where the potential, pitfalls could be along the way. It's pretty simple with pretty much all the other ones. The couple other big ones that I always want to talk about is when we do a send email. One of the things that you do have the ability and you want to make sure you take advantage of if you're building either emails or text for your team, like smart plans that have those steps, you want to make sure that when you're using that you're using merge tags. So over here on the right-hand side, we have merge tags. So, everyone's pretty familiar with it where you can say, hey, contact first name. That's going to pull the first name from the contact, so that way it looks like it's personalized. But what people always forget about, sometimes they'll type in their name on the end of the email. And if you do that, it will show that name, my name, on the bottom of every contact that goes out. So instead, you want to make sure you take advantage of agent first name, agent last name merge fields. So there's just some additional merge fields when you're within a team.
So that would be whoever it's
Is-
assigned to, it would send that name. Okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So-
And just to give you a little bit more insight, we won't dive too deep into this. You actually have access to more merge fields if you do a designs-based email. So if you build an email within designs, there's a little bit more options when it comes to merge fields, probably especially associated with the team. So just kind of always want to point that out. And this is always a good rule of thumb too, if you're going to take advantage of the Smart Plan library, don't ever just download a Smart Plan from the library and then just start sending your team contacts to it. Even if they say it's a team Smart Plan, make sure you go through it because, no maliciousness aside, some agents, when they're building Smart Plans and they publish them, they forget to use the merge tags and they have their information in there. And about 6 months ago, I actually had an agent, a Rainmaker, they downloaded a Smart Plan to send out their app. And it actually had the app link for the agent that built the Smart Plan, and then they thought that agent was trying to steal their contacts, and it was this big old thing, and I'm like, no, this is what happened. You forgot to update. So it's always a good rule of thumb, if you download a Smart Plan, set yourself up on it first, just so you kind of see what it does.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Do you have the ability to write letters and post them on envelopes as well from command?
So what you're asking me, like an actual mail merge within actual letters themselves, so that way it's a physical letter.
Yeah, you actually print a letter and mail it. Does it have?
Can you describe what this print is?
I know, that's,
I'm
and I've
confused.
had this discussion several years ago with Jen, and I'm just wondering if that has come to fruition at all.
You mean like on paper?
Yeah, on
Oh,
paper, that
okay,
you
cool.
send in envelopes to people that,
So you can't do merged letters, so to speak. So you can't have it like to build a letter, because you're probably referring to what you used to be able to do in Top Producer.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
20 years ago.
I remember Top Producer 5, man, had the 3.5, did you see the bald spot? I've been
Yeah.
around.
So how does this superior technology not have that ability to do something that Top Producer did 20 years ago?
I think more than anything, if you were to ask me, and I don't know, I just give an opinion, it probably has more to do with, requests. So said another way, and no offense meant by this to anyone anywhere, but, we try to build technology that is going to hit a bigger mark than, and maybe at one point start to add some of that lesser functionality. It's kind of the same argument when someone says, well, hey, I put my open houses in the newspaper. I sold an open house 2 years ago because it was in the newspaper. They came in, they say they saw it in the newspaper. Does it not work? Sure. Are you gonna generate a lot of business by putting your open houses in the newspaper? Probably not.
There's other things to do with letters. I'm sure you still get them at your house as well.
Only collections, man.
I understand, but here's the thing, I'll bet money you
That and
still,
restraining orders. but
and you
that's-
still open those letters, right? I bet
and-
there's emails that
yeah.
you've never read.
Yeah, and I think, and what I would say is, I think that's a valid statement, and what I would highly recommend, in all honesty, it's funny, I've never actually had anyone bring that up to me, but what I always recommend to anyone, if you have a suggestion on where you would love to see command go, that's actually one of the most beautiful things about being a part of Keller Williams right now, is your voice actually matters,
Okay,
right?
so let me ask you this.
Sure.
I asked that 2 years ago and nothing has ever.
Let me ask you this.
Well, it's different than 2 years ago too.
Well,
Okay.
there's a lot of change. We had the leadership change at the beginning of the year, which has been phenomenal. But my question for you would be this. This is your best way to try to get features implemented. Go to ideas.kw.com.
I'm sorry, I'm not doing that anymore, okay?
Well, this would be my suggestion.
Okay.
This is what I can suggest to you. If you go to ideas.kw.com, you create the idea, and then what you have to do, you have to get other people to vote for it. And this is what I can tell you. If you go through the legwork of creating the idea, if you share it to me, what I can do is I will get that idea out in front of everyone within the region, and then I'll let the region speak. If agents feel the need to go ahead and vote, they absolutely can. Thanks for attending. Hopefully it was beneficial.
Like, good snippets, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Regarding the merge, there's not a merge for address. just-
So he's referring to building letters. So there is
Right, I
a,
just say, if there's like where you can have like where the first name, last name, is there one pull down that says? Because you can do the smart plan if address is in there.
so, and I know where he's coming at.
Yeah, it's not in there.
We can, best we can do right now, unfortunately, we can do labels, right? And what I can tell you is this, that in theory, if you're willing to do a little bit more work, right, we can do that within Word itself. So you can export your contact list from Command, and then it's easy enough to do. But I understand your concerns. But yeah, if you start with ideas, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to try to get that out in front of as many people as possible. Perfect. So the last thing we're gonna quickly talk about within smart plans is I always like to just point out the SMS, MMS, because this is where it can get a little bit confusing. So default, it's going to use the Rainmaker. So if I tell it to use the contact assignee to send a text message, that agent that is assigned that contact must have their own Twilio set up. Okay? I can select Rainmaker though, and it can go out the Rainmaker's Twilio account. So while Twilio is not necessarily teamified, if a Rainmaker wants every text message notification to come from the same phone number, which some Rainmakers want, you can designate that SMS step Rainmaker, and it will utilize the Rainmaker's Twilio, their credits, all of that. The one downside to doing this, if you do that, when you're building out the text message and you're using the merge fields, if you use the agent first name, agent last name field, that is going to pull the Rainmaker's first name and last name, because that is who this step is assigned to. Does that make sense? So if you want that to say Joe Smith, what is it? I got some other, like team name at the Josh Boatman group, because Joe is my assigned agent. I would have to leave it contact assignee, but Joe would need to have a Twilio subscription plan in place. Does that make sense, hopefully? Outside of that, that's pretty much the only real nuances. The only other tips I'll kind of give everyone if you're sending text messages, I always recommend the poop followed by the clown. The poop and the clown always gets a laugh. Maybe not in this class, but that's okay. We'll work through this. The jokes just get worse, people. They just get worse. But beyond that, I think, the only other thing that I always I need to talk about it, but I always need to talk about it is this little text right here, the TCPA. Please, 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 if you're utilizing smart plans and you're sending out text messages, the TCPA is a real thing. You really need to make sure that these people are on that do not call list, do not text list, all of it. Real estate agents are getting fined. And in general, when you think about it, one fine's $1,500, maybe not a lot of money to you, but keep in mind, these are actually not just one fine. A lot of times it's class action that these lawyers go through. I know of an agent last year that had to pay $30,000 because they basically took their son's emergency football call list for all the parents, loaded it into a piece of software and sent out a bunch of text messages saying, hey, I sell real estate. And well, he sold $30,000 less of real estate last year. So just be very, very cautious with that. I always want to point that out there.
Where do you check that?
So there's a couple places. So you can go to the, I think it's like dnc.gov, I think that's what it is, and you can look it up there. Some market centers will have a list as well that's available for you to kind of sort through. A couple of rules of thumb with it, now I'm not a lawyer and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn, so bear with me here. But generally, the rule of thumb is this: if they initiate contact with you from a business standpoint, you are allowed to respond to them accordingly. This is just to prevent you from going and just grabbing a contact list, throwing it in there, and
Okay.
just spamming
So
people
if
out.
we get a lead through a plan or through a lead or something, that's okay.
Absolutely.
They can't
100%.
come back on us and say, okay, is there a way for us to add a box in our contacts where we can say verified, not on the do not call, whatever date?
So what you could do is you could either add a custom tag or a custom field. A tag might be easier because you can filter by that. So you could create a tag that could say verified, not on DNC,
Okay,
and then
they
just,
just wondered, like, and we could always make a note, just in case anybody ever came back, we could say, well, as of this date, we checked it, we weren't notified and updated.
keep in mind that protection, I believe, only gives you around a 30-day-ish window.
Okay,
So said another way, if someone reaches out to you, you can have continuous conversation.
Got it.
But if all of a sudden you don't respond to them and then 90 days later, you're like, oh, hey, 90 days ago,
yeah,
you're not protected anymore.
okay, got it.
So just kind of keep that in mind. But that's kind of just quick the down and dirty of smart plans. I mean, nothing's really changed much from personal. It's just there's a couple of those nuances with who you assign certain steps. And then utilizing the merge fields is extremely important when you're building these team smart plans for your team. One caveat that I will kind of point around, talk about, for people that want to use the Rainmaker Smart Plan or Twilio account, but they don't want to utilize these merge fields, I've trained to where they will create a specific smart plan for every team member with their information hard coded in that smart plan. So that way it can come from the Rainmaker's Twilio number, but say Brian Smith on the bottom or Josh Boatman on the bottom. And those individual agents are just adding it to the Josh Boatman version of that smart plan, if that makes sense. If not, ask Jen Vickers, she can explain it better. All right, so as we're kind of working through this thing, let's jump into the next thing, opportunities. And opportunities, like I said, it is teamified, but it's not. And the very first question that I will always ask everyone here, especially if you're a Rainmaker, is there's some cool things you can do to kind of prevent issues in the future. Because one of the things to keep in mind, here you can see I have my Josh Boatman group opportunities, but I can also access my personal command opportunities at the top. You as a Rainmaker have the ability to restrict the ability of people on your team from creating personal opportunities, if you want to do that. Some Rainmakers, when every deal ran through the team, some of them are like, well, hey, you know what? They're on a certain split when a deal runs through my team. When they're with the market center, they're on a different split, so they run that through their personal command. Fine, no judgment here, however you want to do it. But if you're a Rainmaker and you want to make sure every opportunity is always created within the team, so that way it's getting tied to the team and you have transparency into it, you absolutely have that ability. To do that, we're going to go in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to go into settings. And on the left-hand side, we're going to go into command settings. We're going to go into opportunity settings. We're going to go into team permissions. And then we have a couple options here. Do we want to allow private agent pipelines? If you have it set to yes, everyone on the team has access to their own personal command. If you set it to no, no one can create a personal opportunity within command. Or if you want to do it on a case-by-case basis, you can select agents and say, who are you going to allow to have a private pipeline, a private opportunity? Maybe I want Chelsea to, but I don't want my other team member, KWOBR, to be able to create those personal opportunities.
In your experience, how have people done this? Because it was actually the first time I've ever heard what you just said before was like somebody could do a personal transaction through the market center and then one that's through the team. I didn't realize we even had that
Capability?
Yeah, so basically someone's on two different splits or a personal split and they're on the team split.
Depends, I mean, generally, yeah. So that's a unique thing. That's market center specific. and that's
Okay,
not-
I was gonna say,
that's
I don't
not-
even think we have.
That's not like,
that.
that's not like, you guys may not even offer that as
I
an
don't think
option
so.
here.
Okay, yeah,
But I was just kind of want to point it out because
Got
there are
it.
some people, that's kind of how, I've seen it more in my experience, not just within Keller Williams, but just across real estate. Typically, I see that when an agent is first starting to build a team,
yeah,
right? And so they're kind of like, hey, I want you to work these deals for me, those
Yeah.
run through, and we'll split this, but you run your own business, because I don't want to be responsible for feeding me, right,
Okay.
type stuff. If you are one of those people that you want everything to run through the team, I highly recommend you come into this setting and you do not allow anyone, it just prevents any mistakes. It prevents someone from accidentally creating an opportunity under their personal pipeline and then creating the room, getting the signatures and not realizing it until it's too late. And we cannot transfer those opportunities from personal to team. You'd have to recreate it entirely.
thanks.
No worries. All right, with that said, let us jump into opportunities and let's kind of just talk about some of the nuances within this. From a team perspective, there's only a couple things you really need to keep in mind. Anyone with unlimited or rainmakers can see every opportunity that's created. If you want someone else to have transparency into an opportunity, if you have multiple people on the team that are working that opportunity, they need to be assigned to that opportunity. So when we go and we create an opportunity, we have all of our rigmarole up here. Then we have assignees. Whoever creates the opportunity will automatically be an assignee, but then you can add additional people to be assignees to the opportunity. A rule of thumb will always be this. It makes your life so much easier if you assign everyone who needs to look into an opportunity, who inevitably you want to have access to the DocuSign room, in as an assignee before you even create the opportunity. Just a good rule of thumb. So we can, it's pretty simple. We'll just grab a client. Willy Wonka, love Willy. Gobstopper is not that great though. And then we'll quickly say, hey, you know what? Here's my opportunity stage. Let's go to active, and we'll say we're at show. We'll create this bad boy. At any point, if you want to change that, if you want to modify the assignees, if you want to add additional people from within the opportunity itself under the detail section, you can click the pencil and you can add and remove people here. Pretty simple. The other quick thing we'll talk about when it comes to the power of opportunities, especially when running a team, is going to be your opportunity checklist. So within opportunities, we have what we call phases, right? That's your cultivate, your active, your close. Those are phases. And within each phase, we can have as many stages as we want. So to give you an idea, let me jump back out of this real quick. Actually, let's go. So let's say we want to edit the stages for listing active. Here you can see I've created all these different stages. And within each stage, I have checklists, right? So you can build out these checklists that will automatically be assigned, these tasks that will be assigned to an opportunity when it moves from stage to stage. All might make sense to you, pretty simple. What a lot of people don't know though, and this is just a little nuance, that if we have a listing, and let's just say, do I have contact? Let me just add an item here real quick. All this guy. All right. So when we are in that particular stage, when I move it over, you're going to see there's a checklist item there, and someone can check this off. All well and good. But you're going to notice there's an assign option. If you want everyone on the team to see that you've checked off an opportunity as of right now, it needs to be assigned to someone first. So if it's my responsibility, I'm going to click on it, I'm going to click my name, and then I'm going to check it. Because now anyone that has access to that opportunity, who's an assignee, the rainmaker, anyone with unlimited, they will actually see that this was completed. If you do not have it assigned and you just check it off, it actually will appear that that task has not been done.
I have a question.
Sure.
If, speaking of like
answer.
assigning and like, say a lead comes in, you assign it to someone on your team.
Mhm.
Will they then get a notification that, oh, you've been assigned a contact by your?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
We'll dive into campaigns here in a little bit. We'll try to, we're almost through opportunities. We'll spend the rest of the time on campaigns and we kind of talk about that, but absolutely.
Perfect.
When something gets assigned, you do get a notification through Kelly, or
Perfect.
through the command bell, I should say. All right, the last cool thing that we'll kind of talk about within opportunities is the discussion feature. So you have the ability to actually maintain discussions within an opportunity in your team. So think of this like a text message chain that is tied to the opportunity. So that way you can keep track of what's being discussed, right? So if we click discussions, it's gonna say, hey, do you want to create a discussion? Sure. And what we will be able to do is enter a message. So now the one thing it's gonna tell you is we have this little @ symbol. So if you do @, this is how you actually tag someone within the team. So if I want to send a message to Chelsea, I'll do @Chelsea, hey, what are you doing? And since Chelsea is on my team, she has now received an email notifying her that there's a discussion happening within this particular opportunity. When she logs into command, her little command, but her command bell will be red, and she can go in there and have that conversation. And we can chat back and forth with all that history being tied to the opportunity.
That's actually kind of nice, because rather than going through like manually putting in a, like, you know, you can make your notes like, oh, I emailed them or I did whatever. If you put it in here, then someone can actually follow the whole checklist of the activity
Well, and this,
better than in the other section, right?
well, it depends on how you want to function, right? So this is just more of like, hey, did you do so-and-so? Did you, hey, who was the inspector? Like, this is where you can have conversation amongst your team.
Okay,
You can absolutely do that as well.
because what's the other area where you can make a note,
You
but
can
they
do a
won't
note.
be, but you're not notified.
You're not notified.
You're not
That's-
notified when that happens. So if you're trying to keep 3 people on the same page.
Yep,
You would
100%.
Discussion, you'd be within the opportunity and the discussion. So, right?
Right, and this is tied to this property.
This
Yeah, right.
specific transaction.
Yeah.
Right, so then you could have, if you have a system where you have a checklist of things to be done, that would probably be the best place, because everyone's notified then.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in their
everyone's on the same page.
contact, in the contact notes, you won't get notified if people are chatting in there?
No.
Okay, got it.
And what I would always, and that's always, and I love it when people bring that up, because it gives me a great opportunity to kind of discuss the difference between what the intention behind command is, right? So there's a note section for your opportunity, and then there's notes within a contact. The idea should be that the notes within a contact should just be pieces of information that are for the long-term nurture of that contact.
Mhm.
So in general, you shouldn't be, putting a note in the contact saying, oh, they used XYZ to inspect the property, right? That's the note for within the opportunity itself, right? We talked to some agents and I'm like, well, I like to put everything in contacts, but then at one point, you have so much information in there, it's really hard to filter in. I mean, so it should be purposeful notes within the contact on the relationship. Hey, did Jimmy marry Susie? Was the baby his? Those are important things, right? To find out,
So with that, you said how when you have a smart plan, it gets assigned to the person through a task.
Mhm.
But then the rainmaker won't necessarily see if they did it. So if that person used that contact and put like a note in and said, I made the quarterly call, could the rainmaker then, if they wanted to, check
the notes. and
the
see it.
notes in that specific contact that they were assigned to see what conversations they had?
Absolutely. One of the other things that I've seen teams do with that to try to work around the task limitation currently is they will use specific tags and they'll just add and remove tags. So that way, as a rainmaker, you can sit there and say, type in whatever your notes, and then you assign the tag like completed this week's task. The rainmaker can filter and then go into each of those contacts
Got
and
it.
see it, and then that rainmaker can then remove the tag saying, hey, I viewed it, I viewed it, I viewed it, I viewed it.
Mhm.
So you can kind of work around it. The cool thing is task teamification is actually something that is coming soon.
Cool.
So that's gonna be huge. I mean, it's gonna be the craziest thing, but it's super awesome. Beyond that, that's kind of it when it comes to opportunities and teams. I mean, it's a couple things you just want to keep in mind. Make sure people who you want to view the opportunity, who you want to be a part of that DocuSign room, add them as an assignee from the very beginning. Take advantage of the checklist for each stage and build out your process. And just make sure that as people complete it, you're either assigning people to those tasks or they're assigning the tasks to themselves before they check it off. Pretty simple process. And then discussions. I think it's extremely underutilized, especially when you start to get into the bigger teams and you want a centralized place of where everything is being, everyone can be notified and, controlled. Pretty simple. Any questions regarding opportunities before we move on to campaigns? And I'll get you guys out of here hopefully on time.
No.
Awesome sauce. All right. So now let's talk about campaigns. So campaigns is the latest thing that we have seen. Actually, you know what? If I can, I'll squeeze in team activity tracker as well. That might be interesting for some people. But team campaigns is one of the latest things that has finally officially been teamified. So what does this basically mean? This means a couple things. That now campaigns can be built under the team account if you're a Rainmaker, not under your personal account. This means that other people with unlimited or enhanced can build those Facebook campaigns. Previously, only the Rainmaker account could do it, right? And have those things routed. That means people with unlimited and enhanced can build those specific lead routes, right? What's really cool in conjunction with this release, you can now actually have leads that come in a specific Facebook campaign automatically assigned to a agent, to a specific lead route, or to trigger a specific smart plan. Now that's available to solo agents as well. This was just kind of released in conjunction with each other. So, and probably the biggest benefit, you actually can now access your team contacts from within the campaigns applet. Previously, email campaigns within a team were kind of pointless because you couldn't select your team contacts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of jump into paid ads real quick, just kind of show you some of the nuances with that, just so you're kind of aware. And then I'm going to jump into social posts because emails and direct mail is pretty basic. So let's go ahead and we're going to quickly create a campaign. All right. Oh, advertise listing. So nothing's really changed here, right? You can select your listing. If you built a campaign before, not that big of a deal. You add your listing, you plug in your text, you have your media. One of the big things that's changed is your Facebook settings. So you actually can now, if agents on your team have unlimited or enhanced permissions, they can share their business page to the team. So for instance, here you can see, here's me, I'm the Rainmaker. I could only run things on my KW agent demo page. But now, here's John Kelly, who's also on my team. I can now run ads on his business page as well, if we choose to do that. That's one of the nuances. The other big thing is going to be your lead settings.
Mm-hmm.
So when we click lead settings, this is new. This is where you can do a couple different things. You can have it go out a specific lead route, which is kind of cool. So now each Facebook campaign or a specific Facebook campaign could have a specific group of agents you want to offer that lead to. Maybe you have a set of agents that are your luxury agents that you want to respond to maybe the $500,000 and up properties, and then maybe you have agents that you don't. You want to work the $100,000 and below Facebook deals, right? It's fair enough, right? Earn your keep. You gotta crawl before you walk. You can set up specific lead routes that only those agents would get notified of those particular leads, if that makes sense. But the biggest and the coolest thing with this is the ability to assign things to a smart plan. So here you can see I created that Thundercat smart plan. Now when leads come in on this campaign, I can have it automatically start that smart plan. Previously, it was a manual process. A lead would come in, you'd have to manually assign those leads to a smart plan. It was a pain in the rear.
Yeah.
Now this can happen automatically. And what's really cool about it is designed that the smart plan will not trigger until someone claims the lead. So what's really cool about that, and let's talk about that. We talk about how when you're building out these smart plans, you can have it pool whoever is assigned the contact's information, right? So it looks like it's coming from Jimmy if Jimmy claimed the lead. So once Jimmy or Susie or whoever it is, based upon your lead routing, claims that lead, that is when the smart plan triggers, and then it pulls his contact info. So when that email goes out, it's showing Jimmy's name at the bottom. Does that kind of make sense?
But
Even if you assign them to a certain agent, they still have to claim it before it starts.
Well, only if you use the lead route to do an automatic assignment, which
Yeah.
is, then.
Then it's
they don't-
fine.
Then
Yeah,
that's
that's-
correct.
Okay.
But
Okay.
one of the really cool things with smart plans and the ability for us to automatically have campaigns go to specific smart plans automatically, it's an amazing thing is you can now build specific smart plans for specific campaigns. Extremely valuable,
Yeah.
right? A lot of times, this whole time, a lot of times people just been using the same smart plan for all Facebook leads across all different campaigns. Think of this now, if you have a really cool property and a really cool division, and then maybe it has like, maybe this place has a really cool gym and a really awesome pool and all these different things, right? You could have a smart plan that it automatically hits that and it talks about the property in question within the smart plan. It's not some generic, hey, thank you for your inquiry, we'll be in touch, right? It can say, hey, thanks for your interest in 123 Sesame Street. Just so you're aware, over the next couple days, I'm gonna send out automated text messages or emails. You're gonna get a few emails about some of the cool features of what it would be like to live on 123 Sesame Street. And then you could have an email 3 days later go out and show pictures of the really cool amenities of that property. Or hey, down the street, did you know that, there's hiking within 5 miles of 123 Sesame Street? Check out this, and show videos of the trails. You can be very, very purposeful with your marketing when it comes to responding to these campaigns. And whenever I talk about marketing, and especially when we market to buyers, my rule of thumb is what sells to a buyer always sells to a seller, right? And what I mean by that is you go out on a listing presentation and you talk about, oh yeah, not only am I gonna run a Facebook campaign, when they get a Facebook campaign, they're gonna get 5 different emails that are gonna talk about how awesome it is to live in your house, right? Here are the examples of my most recent one that I did on, Green Street, right? And I showed this, and I showed this, and I showed this, and I showed this. Whether someone buys the property or not because of that, sellers love the idea that you're going the extra mile, because whenever you go on a listing presentation, here's the truth. Y'all basically do 90% of the same thing. Your business is no different. You put it in the MLS, you hold an open house, it's on realtor.com, you put it on Zillow, whatever it is, right? Y'all do 90% of the same thing. It's that 10% you do different that sways the seller. Outside of the price is the issue, the price is always going to be the issue, but you can justify your commission when you sit there and you say, hey, I'm not only gonna do this, when they sign up, they're gonna get this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, right? A little bit more work, but you know what, who wouldn't do that, a little bit extra work if you can get a $600,000 listing? So those are just some of the cool things that I like. So always keep in mind, whatever you think is gonna sell to a buyer, will sure as heck sell to a seller, because you just tell the seller why this is valuable to a buyer, and everyone will think, oh, that's super cool. So
I have a quick
Mine
question
too.
about that, when you
Sure.
connect the smart plans to it. When does it send the actual email? So like if they clicked on the ad at 8 o'clock on a Friday and, we want to remind them on Saturday that there's an open house from 1 to 3, is there a way we can schedule it to send it like 9 a.m. or does it automatically send at like 8 p.m. that day? I'm just thinking of like the timing.
So there
when
is
we
a
send.
window. There is a window that all text messages and emails go out from
Okay.
smart plans. And what this does is it prevents the 3 a.m. text message from
Yeah.
going out,
Right.
as it were. Now, I'm a very transparent person, so it's based upon Central Standard Time. So
Okay.
it's so you have to do the math here. So for us, it's not that big of a deal. When you're in Hawaii, it's a little bit different. But for us, we're lucky. So it goes out. All emails and text messages will go out within a window of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So what that means is if that lead comes in at 9 a.m. that morning, it will wait. If we're just speaking Central Standard Time, because I can do the math, but if it comes in 9 a.m. at Central Standard, they won't receive that email and or text message until around 10 or thereafter.
Okay.
So, and that's just to kind of protect the idea that, hey, it's just not gonna go out at all.
Yeah. How, is there a way to like, I don't think there is, but is like, because if you have your campaign go for a couple of days and like maybe you're advertising an open house, but then if you have them set up on a smart plan and you're emailing them on like a Friday, reminding them that there's an open house, like maybe even if it's on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but then if someone clicks on the ad on Sunday, you don't then want them to get the email that was sent out on Friday.
They,
So
well,
how do you
they
go,
would,
is
so-
that when you'd have to like maybe not assign a smart plan and then assign it as they come in and kind of be on top of
If
it?
your smart plan is tied around a specific date and time in the future,
Yeah,
and you want emails to go out based upon that date, then you would not want those. to
Okay, got
automatically
it.
go. But because keep in mind, smart plans are not date specific, they're step specific.
got it.
So smart plan will always start with step one. Even if like you built a smart plan and a lead comes in on Monday, it starts with step one on Monday. If a
Yeah.
lead comes in on Wednesday, it starts with step one on Wednesday.
Got it.
And it's days, not dates. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome sauce. All right, so that's pretty much kind of the basics there with building a campaign within teams there. Let's, it's always yes, always click yes. The other cool thing I want to talk about quickly is a social post. So if you have those agents and they are unlimited and enhanced within your team and they want to share the social media posts across their networks, it's very cool. So if we were to build a social post, and let me just browse my designs library real quick. We'll do Facebook, America. Who doesn't love America? See if it'll load. You're gonna see down here at the bottom that I can pick and choose which pages do I want this to go out. Do I want it to go out multiple Twitter? Do I want it to go out multiple, Facebook pages? Because my team members are enhanced and they've shared access to their business page, I can actually have this post that I'm creating. Yeah, sure, just do that. This will actually post not only on my business page, their business page, as well as my Twitter, right? So you have that ability now within team campaigns that agents can share access to their Facebook business pages. And then a post can go out at the same time across everyone versus say you're admin logged into each individual person's account and post it that way. That's kind of the nuance with that. Outside of that, the last thing I want to talk to you about, we're running a little bit over, but this is kind of important. This came out last week. There is now for teams exclusively what they call the team activity tracker. So as a Rainmaker, you now have the ability to set up an automated email that goes out to your team members every day, every Monday, every Friday, whatever it is, to ask them specific questions on what they did that day. So this way, as a team member, or as a Rainmaker, you can kind of get a better insight into what's your team doing on a day-to-day basis. Pretty simple process to set up. We'll go in the upper right-hand corner. We'll go into settings, and this can only be done as the Rainmaker. Unlimited or enhanced cannot do this. This is only a Rainmaker thing. So the Rainmaker has to log in, or you have to log in as the Rainmaker. Go to command settings on the left-hand side, reporting, activity tracking. And there's a couple nuances with this. I'm gonna try to run through them relatively quick in an essence of time. Here is the days you pick that you want that to go out. So here I have it set up that it's gonna send an email out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Here is the time frame that it's going to go out for the first reminder. So this is when it's gonna send the email saying, hey, how was your day? Now keep in mind, this time that's listed here is in UTC, which is the universal time zone. So it's not gonna be it's not gonna be ours. So this is gonna go out at 12 p.m. here. If you look below it, as we adjust it, it'll say what your local time zone is. So 12 p.m. UTC is actually 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So as you adjust this, that little tooltip will change. So you just have to not focus so much on the numbers in the selector boxes, but the tooltip below to understand what the time frame looks like when it goes out for your time zone. That makes sense. Here you can set the deadline. It functions the same way. When is this due by? And then you can have it send up to 5 reminders every hour, up to 5 hours basically after the due date to say, hey, you still need to do this. Hey, you still need to do this. Hey, you still need to do this. You can even restrict certain dates and time, or certain dates if you don't want it to go out. So by default, we have the holidays in here, but maybe you want to include Red Day, or you want to include a specific day in the future that you don't want this to go out to bother your team. You can turn that on. You have the ability to just do this for individuals on your team. So if we do individuals in the upper right-hand corner, if we have some experienced agents, we don't want to hassle them with like plugging that information in. We can choose our team members. edit them, and then exclude, in this case, I excluded Chelsea, she's the ROM, she'd get really upset if I was sending her emails every day. From even being a part of team tracking, but KWOVR, I've included, and I even said, hey, since he's so new, I want a daily report. So this goes out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever.
Is
Right.
this function available for the pro coach?
It is. It is available for PC. Haven't tested it with PC, but it is available. At least it shows up. It should work. So to give you an idea, what an agent sees, they'll get an email, and I actually don't have one in front of me, I just deleted them all, but they'll get an email, and that email will contain a link. And in that link, they'll be able to select their date, they'll be able to say, was it a good day or a sad day? How much time did they spend prospecting? How many did they talk to? Where do they find them? They can plug in all this information and submit it. As the Rainmaker, you will have a widget on your homepage that'll show the activity for people that have submitted it. You'll be able to view the leaderboard to see who has been submitting it consistently. And if you want to dive deeper into it in reports on the left-hand side, you will be able to actually drill deeper into it and go to activity. And you'll be able to see what were the hours spent, what were the conversations over a set of time frames. The happy smiley face, if you can barely tell, but what it'll do is it'll draw like a little green circle around their picture if it was a smiley face day, and a red circle if it was a sad day. So you guys have an understanding that they were having a sad day. Just kind of one of those super cool things that, you know what, you as a Rainmaker just allows you to kind of stay in touch and make sure that people on your team are doing the tasks that you asked them to do. And if they are doing those tasks and they're still not seeing any success, it gives you a great opportunity to figure out where the lacking is. Maybe there's better coaching you can provide as a Rainmaker to help them take that next step. Outside of that, that is command team overview with your regional technology director, me, Josh Boatman. Any questions, concerns, criticisms, compliments? I mean, I had one walk out earlier. It's
That was an awesome overview.
not the first time a blonde walked out of my life.
At least you didn't have to pay this time.
Ooh, we're still recording this, be careful.
They can't see my face.
Is there any questions on the internet world? Anyone? It's just one person. Hayden, no questions? Awesome. Well, outside of that, if you have any questions, what I always tell people, feel free to reach out to me, or more importantly, talk to Jen Vickers. She is your Market Center Tech Trainer, Director of Technology Extraordinaire. She is your Market Center's command expert and knows everything about command more than I do.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Josh. Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, Photoshop. That's fun. You need to just get a hump.
GLH.